Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. To think today I was going to make a podcast about Anthony Davis and whether or not the Knicks should make a play for Davis and what are the pros and cons and whether they should hold on to their young assets or if they could get their hands on I don't know if you want to call him a transcendent player, but surely a top tier NBA player. And just as I was about to set up my recording equipment, I get the first tweet stating that Porzingis met with, or rather his representatives, met with the Knicks front office, and they expressed that he was not happy with the direction, or let me take a step back, that there were concerns about the direction of the Knicks, where they were headed, and whether they could sustain or establish a sustained winning culture. It went from that to all sorts of banter about, here we go again, KP being a pain in the you-know-what, trying to get his way, demanding this, demanding that, KP being a thorn in the side of everyone once again. And minutes later, the second tweet comes out that the Knicks have been left with the impression, and again, I'm paraphrasing here. I mean, there were tweets flying in from Woj, tweets flying in from Shams Charania, tweets flying in from Mark Stein to all sorts, the whole gamut of NBA reporters. Once this became a story, I mean, there were angles flying out left and right. So again, it went from this initial meeting where they expressed concern about the direction of the Knicks, okay? It went from that minutes later that the Knicks have been left with the impression that Porzingis would prefer a trade, all right? You know, that's when things went into hyperdrive, into overdrive. And I mean, minutes later, Shams Charania chimes in saying that the Knicks and Mavericks are working out a deal to send Kristaps Porzingis to the Dallas Mavericks. So imagine this for a second, if you would. This morning, you probably woke up thinking to yourself, you know what? Let me check the NBA news. I'm sure that the Lakers are probably still trying to call New Orleans. Apparently, the New Orleans front office just refused to return calls or answer any calls relating to Anthony Davis. And then earlier today, you hear that the Lakers have prepared or reportedly prepared a package. That includes the typical suspects, the usual suspects that you would imagine. Lonzo Ball, Ingram, Zubac, Kuzma, and a first-round pick, which is what you figured they would prepare for Anthony Davis. Whatever, that's a conversation for another podcast, but for what you thought was going to be the topic of conversation today, that it was going to be all about the Super Bowl, that we're literally 3 days away from the big game, and that a side order of, Anthony Davis, 6 days from the trade deadline, whether there's going to be any momentum or whether New Orleans is going to continue to play this high-stakes game of chicken and decide, you know what, we're going to hold on to Davis till the offseason where we think we're going to get the best offers, which in reality is true. You did not expect that Kristaps Porzingis would flat out be dealt today by the New York Knicks. There is no way that you woke up today thinking to yourself, this vision that you had of the New York Knicks, which I think all of us had, that this offseason the Knicks were going to be wooing the likes of Kevin Durant, of Kyrie Irving, other top tier or middle of top tier free agents with the promise of playing with a Kristaps Porzingis, with a high first-round draft pick, whether that be Zion Williamson, whether that be Morant out of Murray State, whether it be R.J. Barrett. You figure that the Knicks are going to land a top 3 draft pick. So you figure that promise of a high draft pick, the promise of what you hoped to be a healthy KP, which, you know what, you throw him out on the court last 4 or 5 games of the season and see what he can do, see if he could still, or see if he, see how he recovered from his injury. So you figured those two things, along with hoping that you would see some signs of promise out of your young core, that you would see some signs, some sustained signs out of Kevin Knox, who is fresh off an NBA Rookie of the Month award, that you would see some progression out of Alonzo Trier as, he starts to get some more steady minutes as a, possible sixth man or, very useful rotation guard. You obviously, Mitchell Robinson and, sort of the raw development that's taking place with him. And then you would hope to see that in his second year, you would see some signs of progression from Frank Ntilikina. Now, I mean, Frank Ntilikina is another podcast in and of himself, and, whether they actually have something in him or they don't. There are fans that will say that, we don't know what we have in Frank Ntilikina, and then there are those that say he was an absolute draft bust, and the Knicks should do whatever they can to bundle him with whoever, be it a Cantor, be it a Hardaway, who is part of the Dallas trade, which we'll get to in a second, just to get him out of town. That they should have gone for Dennis Smith Jr., they should have gone for Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, all those things, those are both moot points now at this time. But the point is, you were hoping to see this young core of players develop, that you would be able to showcase that to a Kevin Durant, to a Kyrie Irving, along with, look who we just landed in the draft. We just got Zion Williamson. We just got RJ Barrett. We just got this electric point guard Morant out of Murray State. And, by the way, you just saw Kristaps Porzingis play 4 or 5 games down the stretch, and he looked good, right? Looked healthy, showed no ill effects of his injury. Those are going to be the showcase points that you were going to make to free agents. And then all of a sudden this news comes out that they had this meeting, and, now you're thinking to yourself like, oh, here we go again. It's just that there is no winning when it comes to this franchise, right? There's no direction. There is no culture. That if your franchise cornerstone player is saying these things, obviously he's coming from somewhere. And then minutes later, he's traded. He's gone. So the whole vision that you had of, showcasing Porzingis to pair along with a high draft pick, to pair along with the, young core, that's gone. That's out the window. So, sure enough, the trade is announced, and I'm not reading this off anywhere, so I'm paraphrasing. If I'm incorrect in any of the details, please forgive me. The Knicks send Tim Hardaway Jr., Courtney Lee. I heard reports that Trey Burke was in the deal as well. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis is the centerpiece of the deal. And in return, they get Dennis Smith Jr., who obviously many Knicks fans clamored for. Well, you finally got him. It also included DeAndre Jordan and Wesley Matthews. So those are 2 expiring contracts. Now, the expectation is that at a point in which they can be bought out, they will be bought out. I don't know if they are eligible to be packaged in any trades prior to the trade deadline. But that said, you essentially made this pick to clear cap space. And you know what? I guess throw it on top, you have Dennis Smith Jr. Dennis Smith Jr. is a very minor detail in this whole equation. That said, obviously, young point guard has shown, to be a scorer in this league. We'll see what kind of an impact he could have on this team. But Frank Isola tweeted this, that whether they stick with Dennis Smith Jr. this or next year or what have you, that the grand plan is to target Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. So, look, Dennis Smith can come here and absolutely light up MSG, and we're sitting here thinking to ourselves, hey, we got our point guard of the future. That's still not going to preclude the Knicks from going after a Kyrie Irving. So let's discuss what we have now. Kristaps Porzingis, who was drafted in the Phil Jackson regime, is no longer here. What you thought was going to be a vision that was centered around Kristaps Porzingis and importing another, superstar, or maybe 2 superstars, that vision is gone. Kristaps Porzingis is no longer a New York Knick. And I know that vision or that thought is still dizzying to this point, because where did this come from? This whole process escalated so quickly. This whole process took literally an hour and a half to unfold, to the point where you go from a meeting to a feeling of him not wanting to be here to boom, he's out. He's traded. Now, for those thinking that all of this actually took place in the course of 2 hours, I'm sure that's not the case. I'm sure these conversations have been discussed for days, weeks, if not months now, between the Knicks and the Mavericks. Now, report has it that the Knicks had offered a package to New Orleans, which involved Kristaps Porzingis for Anthony Davis. But reportedly, New Orleans was not interested in Kristaps Porzingis. So that means one of two things. They either just don't like him, and by him, that means maybe they're unsure of, what exactly his prospects are with his injury. Maybe they just don't think that he doesn't profile as a player that they, I guess, want to build around. Or they just figured he is not going to sign an extension in New Orleans. So bottom line, they weren't interested in him, reportedly, and that's why that deal never materialized. So where do we go from here? As far as, again, and it's a shock because anything that you envision about next year, the sentence begins with, you're going to get a healthy KP. KP's going to be back. That's how every sentence about the 2019-2020 season begins. That Porzingis is going to be back, and then, obviously whoever may join him via free agency, via the draft, that vision is gone. Now, you're talking about the remainder of a season where, look, we talk about showcasing young talent, and that's what they've been doing. That's what the Knicks have been doing over the last few days, few weeks, and, almost to the point of madness, almost to the point of, look, you're going to have growing pains with a young team, but then you're going to have some of those awkward moments. You're going to have some of those, uncomfortable moments, which the Knicks have had with Enes Kanter, right? Enes Kanter, yes, he re-upped to be part of this team for this year. So it was his choice to be on this team. I'm sure he understood what the situation was, that this was not going to be a team that was going to do any winning, but, and that they could go in this direction of featuring the youth, aka tanking or what have you. And he decided to be here anyway. So, but nonetheless, he wants to play. I mean, you're talking about somebody who profiles as a double-double machine, someone who is a prolific rebounder, someone who can score in the low post, and he wants to play. So, look, nobody's faulting him for that. Look, does he lack on the defensive end? Yes, and is that a reason why the Knicks probably don't see him as a part of their puzzle going forward? I would imagine so. But, look, you could, as a veteran player, decide, I understand what's going on here, and I could either just kind of do what I have to do for the betterment of the team, or I could, put myself out there that I am not happy. I'm not happy with this circumstance. I'm not happy with this situation. And as Kanter, look, I mean, you've seen it with, obviously, this situation, and then, everything that he's dealt with, with the Turkish government. He's an outspoken guy. This is not someone who, ho-hum, I'll just go about my business. I'll do whatever the team asks of me. No. Enes Kanter is someone who, if something is on his mind, he puts it out there. I mean, today, look at his Twitter account today. It's just literally a series of emojis, which has to do with heart unicorn, and then heart NYC, and then there's the emoji where he's thinking. So, the more he's been outspoken, the more uncomfortable, obviously, it has had to, it has gotten with the Knicks, and I'm sure, in the locker room. And then what happens last night when, he checks into the game in the third quarter, and obviously he gets the standing ovation. That's great. He leans down to the floor and kisses the Knicks logo. Now, you know what? Me personally, as a Knicks fan, as a lifelong Knicks fan, I don't mind that. I really don't. I really think it's cool that you have someone who's a good NBA player, a very solid NBA player who, has made no secret that he wants to be here. He wants to stay here. He loves the Knicks. He loves New York City. I think that's cool. I don't think that that's something that we need to sit here and just begrudge every little thing that it is that we see. That, he kneels down to kiss the garden floor. You know what? I think that's cool. And, had it been somebody else, I think we would have been like, oh, that's so great. What a grand gesture. But it's Enes Kanter, someone who we clearly expect is going to be dealt, or at the very least not going to be part of the equation, as of next year. And it does create a bit of an awkward situation. It does create some talking points. Obviously, now with the Porzingis news, that no longer is a talking point. That is shoved way down the totem pole. But you look at the situation now with this team. Yes, you still have Enes Kanter. Courtney Lee's gone. Tim Hardaway's gone. And, I know we kind of gloss over that, but so much of the conversation over the last few weeks regarding the Knicks had been, how are they going to rid themselves of these contracts, right? Like Tim Hardaway, I believe he has $18+ million next year. So, look, there are deficiencies in Tim Hardaway's game. Can he score? Yes. On a good team, he profiles probably as a fourth to fifth scorer. But, he can score. Can he defend? He has not shown that he can defend at this level. Can he pass? It's, again, he can score, right? So Tim Hardaway is somebody that in the right situation, he could be someone that can give you some good, scoring off the bench. That's, I guess, if I had to summarize Tim Hardaway Jr. and the best case scenario for him, it would be that on a good team, he could be your fourth best scorer, which is not a bad thing to have. But obviously with that contract, you thought that the Knicks would have some difficulty, dealing him to anyone that would be willing to take on that contract. That said, so you get rid of his contract. You get rid of Courtney Lee's contract. Now, Courtney Lee is somebody that, again, he's a veteran. He's been around the game. And for what it's worth, again, we talked about the other side of the coin with Enes Kanter, somebody who, verbally expressed, through his actions expressed that he was not happy with his role, whereas, Courtney Lee was a little bit more of the, I guess, team comes first and I'll do whatever is asked of me. Now, you could say that, well, Courtney Lee isn't exactly what he once was in his absolute prime, and to be a valid argument. But, look, Courtney Lee is a veteran. He's a good presence in the locker room, but he is somebody that can provide some shooting. So, again, you look at the playoffs, that is a needed asset. Well, obviously in Courtney Lee's case, probably going to be, off the bench, but that's something that teams need. So there will be some value for him to provide, whether it be to Dallas or whether or not, he proceeds to go to a team in a better playoff situation. But the bottom line is this. The Knicks now have cap space for 2 max free agents. Coming into the season, they really didn't even have cap space for 1 max free agent. What they had was cap space, but you figured, all right, if they can maneuver maybe Hardaway's contract, maybe Kanter's contract, whatever, that you'd have room for 1 max free agent, right? And then you'd have to get creative to see what you could do to get in some other, quality talent to pair alongside whichever max contract player you were able to lure in. Now you are sitting on enough cap space, and I think it was reported. I think it was $74.6 million, if I remember correctly. That's what the Knicks are looking at right now. So if that's the case, and oh, by the way, the other aspect that I did not mention, or forgot to mention rather, is that it's also being reported, I think Woj had it, that the Knicks are going to receive future first-round draft picks. Now, I think that's just a very broad, we don't know at this point what that's going to entail, but the point is they are going to get draft compensation as well for this deal. But again, let's just take those draft picks and, unless you're talking about using it in a trade, that's not really going to be part of the impact over the next couple of years. Really, all it comes down to is this. Now you, as the Knicks, have an opportunity to sit at a table with a Kevin Durant, potentially with a Kyrie Irving, or whoever else they deem to be worth either a max contract or, enough space that they could maybe fit in a Kevin Durant, who, it's no state secret that is going to be their top target, and maybe another 2 very, 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 very good players this offseason. That coupled with, again, you have your first round pick. Now, I was going to make a whole other podcast about, I guess the pros and cons of trading for an Anthony Davis. Now, the point that I was going to make, and I'll make it now, is that if you're New Orleans and you're going to trade Anthony Davis, if you're going to ask the Knicks for anything, you're going to ask them for Porzingis, and you're going to ask them for the first round pick, because without those two things, it's a non-starter for the conversation. Now, again, reportedly, New Orleans had expressed that they were not interested in Porzingis, and my feeling is that it likely had to do with either that they were unsure of how he was going to return after his injury, and or they were not convinced or told flat out no that he was going to re-sign with them. So they'd be trading Anthony Davis for a rental, which in their case makes absolutely no sense. I mean, there are teams like Toronto that it could make sense that if they were to trade for Anthony Davis, they could trade, young talent like Anunoby, Siakam, a combination of draft picks or whatever. And, let's say they get Anthony Davis. That means this year your team is going to have Kawhi Leonard. It's going to have Anthony Davis. You'll have a shot at the NBA champ. You'll have a shot at the, Eastern Conference title and at least a puncher's chance against Golden State. And then you know what? If Davis decides, rather not Davis, if Kawhi Leonard went elsewhere after this season, again, you could do one of two things. You can keep Anthony Davis for next year, and then you build around him, obviously. Or you decide, you know what? Hey, look, we took our best shot. It didn't happen. Now, you know what we're going to do? We're going to trade Anthony Davis, and we'll try to get, some max compensation back. But again, that is another scenario for another team. But as far as the Knicks are concerned, look, this is one of those deals. You either love it or you hate it. I don't think there's anyone that I've encountered so far that has had somewhat of an indifferent reaction to this trade. You either love this trade or you are absolutely beside yourself today. That the Knicks traded away their franchise cornerstone who was still on his rookie deal. I mean, you're reading what Max Kellerman's tweeting, and obviously there are a lot of Knicks fans that feel the same way, that you traded your franchise cornerstone, and the best you did was get back cap space and Dennis Smith Jr., which, yes, on the surface level, it's not the greatest optic. But my response to that is going to be this. For one, again, maybe it's just my trusting of Scott Perry. And I don't bring Steve Mills in this conversation because he's been around other regimes, and to me the difference in the Knicks front office has been Scott Perry. Scott Perry has a spectacular reputation around the league, someone who is very well connected around the league. So my thinking is this. I'm sure these conversations have been going on for quite some time, because I also feel that today's meeting that took place between Porzingis' representation, which is his brother, and the Knicks front office, these talks have been going on for quite some time. And I just get the general sense that Porzingis, whether it be directly or through his representation, probably expressed on numerous occasions that he just did not want to be in New York. And I'm not saying, New York City or what have you, but I just feel like he didn't want to be part of this equation. That maybe he just felt like, you know what, I'm someone who deserves star treatment, and I'm just not getting that with the Knicks organization. Or I'm someone who I want to be in a winning situation before 2020, 2021, or what have you, and I don't see that happening with the Knicks. Regardless, I mean, look, this goes back to the episode 2 years ago where he failed to show up for his exit meeting, and there are a lot of Knicks fans in his corner about that good for him standing up to the big bad Phil Jackson and this and that, and went from that to the ball starting to roll in the wrong direction, where he's recovering from an injury, yet he's not doing so under the Knicks supervision. He's doing it in Europe, which again, it's the kind of thing where, like, what are you trying to prove? That, hey, look, thank you, employer New York Knicks, for providing me all the resources and everything, but I'm going to do it my own way. And if you don't agree with me, if you don't like it, well, here's my middle finger. There is that, and then, look, when your new head coach has to fly to your hometown in order to, I don't know what, forge a friendship with you and have to basically, kiss your butt and this and that. It to me, it doesn't send the right message. To me, it sends a message of, look, I am the team. Which, again, you could argue he is a team or was a team or what have you, but he hasn't proven it yet. I mean, look, there were, for all the flashes of promise, for everything that you saw before he got injured last year, you're talking about a player that has yet to play in a complete season healthy. You're yet to see a player who has yet to play his best both parts of the season. I mean, you could say he hit the rookie wall in his first season and hit a sophomore wall in his second season. And you could take it a step further, that when you as a player have, again, I forget the record, it's something like 70 and 106 or something like that. When that's the team's record with you in it, you haven't established that you can win yet. So my point is not to knock Porzingis and say that he's not going to be a star, not going to be a superstar or what have you, but to this point, I don't feel as if he's done enough to establish himself as someone who can make demands, who can, dictate terms. I just and when you have that kind of a situation, when a player is making it abundantly clear that he does not want to be part of this organization's future, you as the Knicks are put in a situation where you have to ask yourself, are we going to commit a supermax contract to this guy in a year and a half? Is this the player who we eventually going to build around when we don't even know what he's going to come back as? So look, I know the optics of it are disturbing, that here you have someone that you drafted, high in the 2015 draft, someone that you, in all honesty, may have lucked out on, because had the Knicks been any higher, you probably wouldn't have drafted Porzingis. You may have drafted Jahlil Okafor. But the bottom line is that you did end up with him, and that he did become the unicorn in Madison Square Garden. There was excitement again that, you go across, to Brooklyn, and while they're having a great season this year and, clearly are starting to, make their move up the Eastern Conference, and that's disturbing for the Knicks or what have you, you always went back to the point of, we have the best player, that we have the best player in New York, and that we comes back healthy next year, this is going to be a different team. So enjoy your glow for now, because, next year the Knicks are going to be, a totally different team when you have Porzingis and, at the very least, a high-end draft pick. So from that perspective, yes, it is not the best day, I guess, if you want to look at it that way, from that perspective. But then the other perspective is this. Again, if what I'm telling you, it resonates with you, right? That with Porzingis, you didn't know. And maybe the Knicks know more than the rest of us do, as far as his recovery, as far as what their prognosis is, as far as when he comes back and how he's going to hold up health-wise. Maybe they just didn't see that this was going to be a player who was, A, going to stay healthy, and B, be, down with what it is that they have planned. Maybe they just didn't see him as someone who wanted to be a leader on this team. Maybe they didn't see him as someone who necessarily wanted to be a New York Knick going forward for whatever reason. And they did what they had to do. Now, I'm sure they had several conversations with different teams, and this whole thing didn't boil down to 1-2 hour session with, Porzingis' representation, and then picking up the phone and be like, hey, Dallas, guess what? Remember us from last night? Yeah. Remember that player who torched us, Dennis Smith Jr., who we could have had, but we didn't? How about we swing a trade? We'll send you Porzingis and a bunch of our crappy contracts. You send us Dennis Smith Jr., some draft picks, some of your crappy contracts, and we'll just call it a day. I'm sure the conversation didn't go like that. But, again, it comes down to this. You either love this deal or you hate this deal. But I will say this. One side will be proven right, and that will be this summer. That will be towards the end of June, the beginning of July. If the Knicks strike gold and they land Kevin Durant and another big free agent, then this trade was worth it. Then this trade this trade is a positive reflection upon what the Knicks front office did today. If they swing and miss, and you know what? They decide, we're going to organically continue to build. We're going to build around whoever we draft this upcoming draft. We're going to, focus on the progression of Kevin Knox, of some of our young players, and then we're going to add as opportunities present. Then that too will be applauded. But if they go out this offseason, swing and miss on Kevin Durant, swing and miss on Kyrie Irving, swing and miss on every blue chip free agent, and then they go spend big money on a second-tier free agent, a.k.a. what happened with the Amari signing years ago, then yeah. Those of you who are just beside yourself today, who have decided to hand in your Knicks fan card, then you're probably right that this wasn't the right move. I am going to go on the direction that I hope, that this regime finally has the right idea as far as what they're doing. I feel as if their information is such where they feel as if it's of benefit to them to part ways with Porzingis now because there are going to be better opportunities going forward. What do I mean by that? I don't think Scott Perry is an idiot. I don't think Scott Perry just decided, hey guys, let's just open up a bunch of cap space and just kind of sit back and hope that somebody's going to want to join us. I think they know something, or I think they are hearing something. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you, look, guys, so on and so forth's hair cutter's assistant said that, Kevin Durant wants to come to New York. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that, look, a lot of things in the NBA are predetermined. A lot of conversations, take place way before we ever hear about it. If you think for a second that Anthony Davis to Los Angeles wasn't pretty much, set in stone before LeBron made it to LA, then you don't know how the NBA works. These players talk to one another. They form their alliances. They text each other. I'm sure they all have their little WhatsApp group chats, and they're saying, hey, LA? Yeah, let's go. LA, you, LeBron, we'll engineer some trades, and we'll make sure that we have, our guys in LA. That's probably what LeBron has been orchestrating this whole time. So, again, if you were to ask me, what are the Knicks are going to sell Kyrie or Kevin Durant on? I'm not going to sit here and tell you, they're going to, show them the picture of Kevin Knox, and those guys are going to be like, oh my God, we're in. What they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, look, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, come together to the New York Knicks. We figure to have a top draft pick, who by then they will know who that is. You guys are going to be on a team where the expectations are going to be low for the time being, but if you win, and you win big, you will be forever immortalized in the biggest media market in the world, the biggest, most starved basketball fan base in the world. And if that resonates with you, if the opportunity to live in basketball immortality resonates with you, then this is the challenge for you guys. And you're not going to be coming to an empty cupboard because we spent this year developing these young, talented players, and we just got a stud in the 2019 NBA draft, and you guys are going to be joining that. And if you guys join us, believe us, there are going to be other players that are going to want to follow suit because they're going to see the exciting opportunity they have in New York in a wide open Eastern Conference and the opportunity to do something big, again, on the biggest media platform in the world. It's all going to come down to what happens in June and July. If the Knicks land Kevin Durant, then today, January 31st, 2019, is a great day in Knicks history. If they swing and miss and decide to just sign whoever for the sake of signing someone, then you're going to look back at this day and it's going to be a day that forever lives in Knicks infamy. That answer is going to be decided later in June, and I'm sure between now and then you are going to hear so many reports, so many I heard this from so on and so forth, from so on and so forth, from so on and so forth, or I'm hearing this. Stay tuned, it's going to be fun, but again, it is a shocking day in Knicks history for sure. Usually when your phone is blowing up or Twitter's blowing up, Knicks related, you're hoping, all right, the Knicks got us, either they made a trade that is going to bring somebody in, or they just signed someone that, you're excited about. Not because of this. This is something that nobody saw coming, but whether or not it's going to be a good day for the Knicks or a bad day for the Knicks, that's going to be determined over the next few months. KnickFM.com coming soon. Please subscribe to this channel, like this video if you enjoyed what you heard. More to come.